US President Donald Trump has set a new deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine. It gives Moscow up to 12 days to comply. For more, we're joined from the US by Oz Sultan, Chief Strategist at the Sultan Interactive Group. Oz, what do you think's behind his sudden new deadline for Russia?
I think it's a couple of things. We've seen some early policy shifts with his diplomacy previously, and I think part and parcel of this too is tying into the issues that we have with Ukraine around their openness to negotiate with us based upon kind of a mineral agreement, and the simple fact that this could put us in the driver's seat inside of that part of the world. So I think you couple those things together, plus, what Trump has actually said, which is they've tried having State Department conversations and it's not really going anywhere. So as he likes to do in his deals, maybe lighten the fire a little bit is going to, move it forward.
Yeah, it was interesting to see him say that. And there have been, I guess, a lot of questions about why 50 days in the first place. Before we answer that one, let's have a listen to the president.
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
All right, we know the art of the deal is important to President Trump. We know that the Russians always enjoy a good game of 4D chess at the Kremlin. Was this always the plan? Do you think that, say, 50 days and then bring it forward? I mean, this is exactly what Trump did with Iran, right? You've got 30 days or you've got 2 weeks and then bang, that first weekend he goes and attacks them.
Well, look how Ursula von der Leyen capitulated the other day. All of a sudden we've got a deal and we've got European investment. So I think the opportunity here is pretty significant. We can end the war, we can move things forward, we could stop depleting everyone's weapon supplies, and we could kind of fix the Ukraine. It is not going to be an easy border dispute, towards the end of this, but at least we could get into a ceasefire mode, and that'd be tremendous. So I think what you've said really kind of hits the nail on the head. He has this sort of shifting diplomatic strategy, which is very Nixonian and not very modern. And I think it confuses a lot of the pundits out there because they're used to John Kerry. Well, John Kerry didn't achieve anything over the course of his State Department tenure. So I think there's some big opportunities here, and he's trying to take advantage of them.
How does Vladimir Putin respond from here? The Kremlin obviously putting out a statement pretty quickly. That's what they do. And that has happened with many people who've been on the opposite side of the negotiating table from President Trump. What does President Putin do here? Because the only way, there's two choices, escalate or de-escalate.
President Putin's going to try and save face inside of this. And keep in mind that this announcement by Trump sent, the markets in Russia tumbling this morning, right? So in addition to everything else that they're dealing with, they're now dealing with additional economic woes and economic downturn. Putin's going to want to minimize that, but he's going to want to present a strong face, similar to what Iran did, towards the end, like, well, we're just going to fire some crap at you and we're going to say, and so I anticipate not something militarily happening, but something where him and Trump kind of come to something where he can maintain face and it moves forward. Now, does that lead to an actual agreement? Well, I think ceasefire is step one. The next steps are going to be, what does this look like? And, Zelensky keeps crying, oh, my Crimea. Well, that was dropped in 2014. I think you lost that one. So it's going to come down to, the border, safety, security, and what the long-term commitments are. But I think that tees things up for an appeasement of NATO, an appeasement of Putin, and really some diplomacy that might work.
Yeah, it's interesting, particularly that question about secondary sanctions. Every time I hear the idea of more sanctions being put on Russia, part of me thinks, hang on, all the song and dance that was spoken about a few years back when sanctions came on, what's left? So I guess the question is, what is left for President Trump to place in terms of sanctions on Russia? I mean, they've been kicked out of SWIFT, they've been kicked out of the international market. We're seeing now plane crashes in Moscow because, well, we don't know for sure, but obviously you can't get parts for planes anymore. It's pretty tough times. What sanctions are left?
We haven't done this in a very long time. They could do an enclosure. If they did an enclosure, that means that they would basically shut down all trucking routes in and out of the country so that restricts them to the former, Baltic republics. That also restricts them from the European Common Zone. And then secondarily, there could potentially be a shipping embargo. Now, I think a shipping embargo may not materialize simply because that's war overtures. But even something as small as shutting down, transport by road, that could have implications in the hundreds of millions of dollars on a monthly basis. And I think that's really where Trump is going to go with this. He's going to push Putin into a position where, can you continue to afford how expensive this is, or can we sit down and come to a deal?
Well, Sultan, appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.